And it is the Mountain Morning Show you're watching. I'm Joe Davis, and joining me, Jim Lee from Prudential Utah Real Estate. I'm thrilled to have you on the show, as always.
Good to be with you, Joe.
Yeah, I think if anybody watches the show, they know I love money and homes. Those are great things.
And your wife, and your wife,
airplanes, and my wife. Yeah. But I love talking about real estate with you. And you know, there's a lot going on in real estate right now. We're on a trend going the other direction. Of becoming, you know, becoming an active market again, and most of, as you and I and Deb have talked about before, the really good steals are gone. We can kind of say that, but it's still a buyer's market, isn't it? It's
still a buyer's market. The pendulum is swinging back just a little bit.
Yeah.
So it isn't an extreme buyer's market. It's heading toward that happy medium, shall we say? And
which is a good thing when we get there.
Which is a good thing when we get there, and we're not there yet. It's still a buyer's market, but not to the extent where the buyers are feeling the position of power totally.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, it's not a reason not to sell right now.
Right.
Because as you wait, you risk too.
Right.
Because it can switch very quickly.
Sure. Things are changing all the time out there.
Right.
Never a dull moment.
I'll say. Well, one of the things that I think is an important part of that is pricing your home.
Absolutely.
I talked to a realtor one time who said to me, look, if you don't price your home to sell within a month, you're missing the opportunity to sell. And I thought that was an interesting way of putting it.
Right.
Because if it doesn't sell very quickly, now it's a stale house, right?
Well, and it can be very easily. When one puts their when a seller puts their house on the market, there's perhaps a pent-up demand or someone waiting out there for that particular product.
Right.
And if they come out with the wrong price, they miss that buyer who is waiting for that house, basically. So you've got to come out and be competitive.
So it is kind of a little like matchmaking, isn't it?
Sure.
There's somebody out there for each one.
You know, Match.com, here we are.
That's really interesting.
Well, that's what a realtor does. Is realtors match buyers and sellers and bring them together to that happy medium to find, first of all, the right home for them, and then to negotiate the price. And you know, the price is, the value is what a buyer is willing to pay, basically.
Exactly.
And that's the tough part for a seller to adjust to in their pricing, is trying to figure out what a buyer will pay for their house. And sometimes when a seller says, well, I want X amount, and it's exceedingly high, you almost want to say to them, well, would you buy it for that amount?
Yeah, exactly. It's a really good point. I mean, you've come to love your home. You've done all the work yourself on remodeling and what have you typically, right? Or you've paid to have somebody do it or whatever the case is. But you were in charge of it. And so it's yours. And you have this ownership kind of feeling of, well, it's worth. It may not be. If you were buying it brand new, would it be? And that's really the point.
Right. It's highly emotional.
Yeah.
It's yours. It's what you put into it, but you're living it.
Yeah.
And you're living the reality that you think someone else will pay a lot for.
Right. And if you do that, like you said, that's risky. That's a risky proposition. And frankly, most realtors will not take an overpriced home, right?
In theory, right, yeah. If we take an overpriced listing, what we're doing is we're confirming the fact that that seller wants more than they should have, and supporting them in padding the market, shall we say.
Yeah.
And what that means is there are more homes that sit on the market out there, and it's not good for anybody.
Yeah, that actually is you've now created more supply than demand.
Which also,
and you've lowered the demand as a result.
And it also enhances the perspective that it is a buyer's market when more inventory is sitting on the market.
Yeah, which is incongruent with the truth.
Yeah, right.
Which creates a real problem.
Right.
I mean,
you're
it would stagnate the
yourself.
market. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's an interesting perspective. What is a way in which to properly price a home? How should one go about that when they're sitting down with their realtor? If I sit down with you and say, look, I love this house. It's worth $350,000, and you say, well, right now it's worth $300,000. You know, but how do you get there? How do you
easier said than done. It's not a complete science. There's a little bit of art to it too.
Right.
Because what we do is we look at comparables. A comparable is a sale in that area that you compare it with, because buyers buy by comparison.
Sure
and
they do.
when I'm showing a buyer around and we look at various homes, they're mentally rating those homes as to which one they like best, but also which one they perceive as the best buy, because their gauge is looking at the other ones. So frequently, if we have a home on the market that's priced too high, what it's really doing is it's helping sell another house.
Right.
So you know, the competitively priced home is thanking the overpriced home for making them look good.
That's a really interesting way of putting it. You really did put yourself right out of the market when you did that.
That's exactly it. You put yourself out of the market, and people don't realize that they're putting themselves out of the market because they figure, well, we'll let someone make an offer. Well, buyers are savvy, and buyers are only going to look at the most competitive priced property.
And they're not going to make an offer that is that is typically going to be the one they could afford anyway, because if they did, it would be perceived as a lowball offer.
Right.
And then that whole machine starts.
That plays out, right.
Yeah, and you know that never works out for either party.
Right.
What I think is interesting that we've sort of alluded to is that for a seller, they have one thing they're selling. It's that house. For a buyer, there's multiple choices.
That's
right.
That's right.
And they're looking at all of them. And I think that's interesting when you have to come to the realization, I can't really just think that they're only looking for my home. They're not.
That's right. That's right. I'm wishing that they're going to fall in love with it the way I have, but that's going to take a while, and that isn't necessarily going to happen instantly either.
Right.
So I need to attract them, if I'm the seller, first of all, by the price.
And now I've noticed also that I've seen this happen in my neighborhood, where a home was priced very affordably. It was priced correctly, I guess is the best way of putting it. It was priced exactly what it should be. And as a result, the buyer actually got considerably more than they had even dreamed probably of getting, because right there on the lawn in their first open house, a bidding war started. And they ended up getting the price they wanted, and they sold it, you know, that first weekend, the first weekend.
Wow. Wow.
And I've seen that. That's happened more than once. That happens occasionally, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And in the old days when the market was hot and we had all those multiple offers and people running around waiting to buy things, interestingly enough, we are seeing multiple offers in our market right now, especially on lower priced properties right now, because
transitional homes are where we're talking about.
Exactly. And in our market, basically homes under $1 million, there's a lot of buyers out there looking for the right house out there. When it pops up on the market, we can see multiple offers, or a condo in that $200,000 to $300,000 range that's competitively priced.
Very interesting. So if people are thinking about selling right now, what's the first step if you're thinking about selling your house?
The first step is every seller has a feel for the market and has a perception of what they think their value is. They need that third party input, which is a realtor. And the realtor comes in, will look at the home, will do the comparables, show that seller what buyers are looking at, what other buyers were willing to pay. And that's where it begins right there, is how does your home stack up compared to the home down the street that sold within the last 6 months, hopefully within the last month or two.
I hope this is a fair way of saying it, but it seems to me it's a little bit like fishing. What's everybody else using for bait?
Yeah, that's right.
Right? We know what's catching fish. Let's use that.
Sure.
That's pretty interesting.
That's right. And to be fair, when you can't just compare square footage to square footage all the time. Appraisers use that as the bar, basically.
But there's lots of other things.
There's lots of...
There's magic lines of where homes do better than others.
Yeah. Condition especially.
Yeah,
the condition of it.
Awesome. Well, if people want to get in touch with you because they want to either sell or buy, what do they do?
Deb and I can be reached at Prudential Utah Real Estate, and our number there is 435-647-8009.
Awesome. Well, give Deb our best, and thanks so much for being on the show.
A pleasure,
Enjoy
Joe.
talking about real estate. Let's maybe you and I can go shopping later for homes.
All right.
All right. We'll be back after more on the Mountain Morning Show.
Just an old sweet song.